Augur meeting, August 6th, 2020. Our topic today is so far no questions in the queue, so let's go with the Google Summer Code student updates. And then I guess I'll have, who wants to go first? Volunteers, any volunteers?
Yeah, I can start.
Shara, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well.
Okay, so I started analyzing the pull requests
Okay.
in order to detect the anomalous ones based on pull requests which are less unlikely to get merged.
Uh-huh.
So I've started analyzing basically 4 factors which affect this. Which include the pull request characteristics, the number of commits and the average sentiment of the comments related to it, and the sentiment of the title, as well as the contributors characteristics. Over here, I was a bit stuck in getting the number of pull requests or projects which a user has contributed to throughout across all repos. So
Yeah,
I
so
was asking if there was any way to get it ready-made rather than
you'll
querying each time.
you can, that can be so the view that we have right now in Augur is only the number of pull requests that a user has made inside the, I guess, collection of repositories that are in that Augur database. We haven't yet, though it's on our roadmap, gathered a list of all projects that a user is committed to and how many pull requests. I believe there is an API that GitHub and GitLab each offer that would let us gather that information, but that is not yet implemented. So one thing that you could do is to, inside the Insight worker, you could create a summary table of contributors and the repositories in that collection that they've contributed to, and that would that might speed things up once you're doing the analysis. Otherwise, you just have to query what's in the database right now. Alternately, I suppose you could make a GitHub API call each time you want. If you find the API at GitHub, start with
Yeah.
GitHub and find their API endpoint for a number of repositories a person's contributed to, and include that data without storing it in the database for now.
Yeah, I actually explored that, but
Mm-hmm.
the problem is the API gives me the metric at present. Like if I query today, it gives me the details up to today, whereas the pull request might have been opened a week ago. So,
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's sort of a limitation we can live with. So
okay.
in the unusual circumstance where that is the very first pull request a person has made,
Yeah.
maybe there's nothing there. But I think in many cases, if the data includes the open pull request, if the data does not include the open pull requests that a person has, then
Like I was saying, it takes into account things which were done in the in between period as well. So that could affect it in case the person is a new contributor.
okay.
Yeah. So I was not very sure about how to get that, how to get those measures. I studied a few papers which address the same problem of predicting the acceptability of an opened pull request, and they have considered similar metrics related to the person who created it. So that's why even I thought I'll take those.
Okay. All right, that sounds good.
Yeah, so apart from that, I would also be considering the repos characteristics, as in the number of issues open at that point and the number of people watching the repo. And related to the discussions, I thought I'll take into account the number of comments passed and the sentiment of the comments.
Okay. Number of comments and sentiment. Okay. All right. So contributor characteristics, number of comments and sentiment of comments. And then obviously there's a, you're looking for trends in merge binaries. I think that sounds really good. How's your testing and documentation coming?
Yeah, I've been testing the worker. That's going fine.
Have
I've
you
not
have
yet
you written
started the.
have you written the tests, like you written PyTest tests, or what kind of tests are you writing?
Yeah, I wrote some PyTest tests. Yeah.
All right, keep up the good work there. Anything else you want to mention, Akshara?
Yeah. Last week we had discussed about the Slack bot thing, so we need to also
Yes,
test the insights.
I've coordinated with uh, Jonah Sikowski, who is the person who did most of the work on the Slack bot. And that repository now is public and exists inside the CHAOSS organization. And Jonah can meet with us at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time pretty much any day we ask him to. So, what day would you like to? Is tomorrow? Tomorrow that would be Friday evening if we met tomorrow for you. That may not be the best time. You let me know
Uh,
if
that's
that works.
okay.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, tomorrow's fine. Yeah.
I will correspond then with Jonah and ask him to ask him if that works for him and confirm with you if it works for him.
Yeah. Sure. So for the contributor thing, you were saying I can consider the negligible things, like even if it's not the accurate data, I can retrieve it from the API for now.
I mean, it's so what's in Augur is complete only for the set of repositories that we have in that database. So yes, I think if you wanted a larger picture, um, just using the GitHub API is the way to go right now. Um, you might create a table to store the data that you get about contributors or larger contributions, since you're going to gather it anyway. That would be awesome
Yeah.
to have that info. It's up. So since you're getting it anyway, if adding the creation of a small table, you kind of know the pattern, that would be fantastic. But if you don't, if you want to just sort of press forward with what you're doing, we can do that later too.
Okay. Yeah.
Just email Jonah asking him if tomorrow works for him. Who's next?
I can go next.
All right. Who was that? Sorry.
Okay, yeah. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sweet. We gotcha. All right.
All right. So yeah, I've been working on the sequential message analysis, the predicting the discourse X.
Yep.
And this week I tried to improve the performance of the CRF model, conditional random field, which is the structured prediction model. And I added a few features, some structural features. That's the number of sentences, number of words, and number of characters, both normalized and unnormalized. And that improved the F1 score slightly for announcement and elaboration labels, but didn't do anything for the other labels. And then I included features from the NRC emotion lexicon and part of speech tagging. And I was hoping to get improvement in score for other labels like negative reaction, agreement, and disagreement. But the improvement, there's a slight improvement, but not that much. So that features didn't really help. And then, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll try including other features to see. Currently, the funny score, overall funny score is 0.6, but in paper they report it around 0.75. So there's a room for improvement.
Yeah. Have you, I think we may have discussed this last time where I talked with somebody else about it. Have you considered removing removing comment threads that have, for example, less than 3 comments in them, and checking the score?
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, currently I'm taking all the threads into account regardless of the number of comments in them.
Yeah, I think with my experience with this kind of analysis is that if there's if there's just one comment, then it's almost not worth doing at all. And if there's 2, that's not quite a conversation yet. It's when you get to 3 that it's in other kinds of similar analyses I did. If there's at least 3 comments in the thread, and the threshold may be a little bit higher, then the results are better. And objectively, if you look at what you're trying to analyze, that makes sense, because one comment does not a conversation make. Nor does necessarily 2. I think if you've got 3 comments and at least one of them is from a different person, then you have at least a micro conversation that will I think you'll get better results for this type of analysis than if you don't exclude less than 3 comments. And since many of the threads actually include less than 3 comments, the 0.6 that you're getting, it may be actually quite a good number for including those 1 and 2 comment threads. By just removing the 1 and 2 comment threads, you may find your is it accuracy or recall?
It's the funny score that time.
Okay. Yeah. So you may find the number just jumps when you do that exclusion. Like you might be there already.
And also, yeah, I'm not including the author information. So maybe including if the posts are from the same person, then it's likely to be elaboration than the answer. Maybe that might help author information. And also, yeah,
I think author information can add some insight. I think that's a good idea. I would say before you do that, just try to exclude the very tiny micro threads, and see. You might just, let's say, you might just try. I don't know how long it takes to run this, but you could try. How long does it take to run the whole model or generate the model? How long does that process take you?
To generate features, it takes quite a time, because for the structured prediction model, we have to group them into vectors. So yeah, around 15 minutes.
15 minutes isn't that long.
It's not much.
No, I've done. That's not very long. But
right.
Okay, so you might just try 3 or more as a starting point, and then if you feel like, and are just excluding things with only 1 comment and see what the difference is. I strongly suspect that your score is going to increase as you raise the threshold of minimum comments, but obviously we want to provide insight in as many places as possible. So let's start with 3 and see what that does to improve the number, because just organically, that is the nature of the analysis you're doing. And if there's less than 3 posts, it's not really a conversation, as I said. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Who's next?
Yes, hello, son.
Hey, Pratik. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty well.
Good. And what are you working on?
So this week I worked on controlling the number of outliers using the contamination factor given by the users.
Okay.
And I thought about some feedback system, like the users will give, is it false positive or true positive, like that. But I think when there will be a meeting tomorrow with Jonah for Augie configuration, then I think it would be more clear. And looking to like improve the models by just analyzing that feedback, either false positive or for true positive, like that.
Okay. So. All right.
And the contamination factor, like controlling the number of anomalies using the contamination factor.
Essentially, you're setting it. That's what we do with the current forest something algorithm.
Isolation forest, yes.
Isolation forest, yeah, as a contamination factor is a variable that we use. Essentially, the lower that number, the fewer anomalies will be detected, but the higher the likelihood of it being an anomaly, like a unambiguous anomaly. I think that the default in the configuration is set so that it's like 0.04 or something. And so
Yes.
the contaminate, I mean, we're not generating anything but actual insights. But someone could raise that number if they want, if, for example, it wasn't showing them anomalies at the level they wanted to see them. And so are
Yes,
you
so
going to...
in isolation forest, it's already a parameter which directly can be passed. But in LSTM, I am just calculating the threshold value using that factor, just mean plus standard deviation. So just increasing or decreasing the values.
Okay, so you're using the existing contamination factor parameter to kind of as a proxy for getting standard deviation. Is that...
Yes, this threshold value.
That makes sense. That sounds reasonable to me. You could also, if you wanted to, create another section in the Augur.conf, another model in the Augur.config.json. I presume you will be creating another worker in the worker block that includes whatever parameters you want to incorporate. And I think I've illustrated before for you, Pratik, where that maybe it was Akshara that I showed. Where let's see, under Augur, so config.py under the Augur. So Augur is the root. That's the root of the repository. There's actually an Augur directory under there, and directly under that directory or in that directory is a file called config.py. This contains our quote unquote standard definition for the Augur.config.json. So it's not constructed from the ether. It's here. And so you can add a section under the worker block for your worker and under the housekeeper block for the model or models in your worker. And in there, you can include parameters. The model parameters are basically just enumerating the model, but you can see, for example, under the current insight worker, there are significantly more parameters that are provided than in many of the other workers. And so you could create a worker block that contains these parameters or whatever parameters are required for your worker. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, I saw that, and it's pretty much kind of same. I think one or two will be different. Like I want to remove this matrix. Matrix have also endpoints and fields, but I'm only using like endpoints, so I will
Yeah.
change.
And you can also hit the database directly, which is kind of, I think, more efficient. But that's, we've talked about that before. That's kind of developer call on that one.
Yes, that might be required for some like feedback, like how the user, how we will take the feedback from the user. We will get
Yep.
that feedback using Augie. Yeah, that might be looked.
All right.
So next time, yes, looking for the testing and documentation.
Okay. All right. And that'd be the same for Sarit. How's your testing and
Yeah, I haven't started testing and documentation. Yeah, I'll work on that this week.
yeah, I think we need to get that in there
Right.
for sure. Oops. All right. And some of you have pull requests merged. I've been digging into our release work. So other Augur updates, because I don't think I missed any Google Summer of Code students on the call. Updates are we released what I ended up calling the repository Augur.WG.August.6.2020 in the CHAOSS.Org GitHub, and it used to just be called Augie, but I figured if I called it Augur-Augie, then all the Augur things would just have the word. It just made sense. Also, I think I can't remember if I did this. I think I did it. I released the Augur community reports before the call last week, but we also released something called Augur-SPDX in the CHAOSS.Org on GitHub, and it's basically a license compliance and risk scanner that works with Augur, and it is based on an old project called Do.SOX B2. I don't know if I'm spelling that right. And I'm working on the release worker updates to address change in the GitHub GraphQL API, and scale testing, just checking a bunch of repos. Andrew or Don, do you have any updates or info you want to report? Oh, and we did have an. Go ahead, Don.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I don't think I had anything specific for me. Let me know when you and Ivana have resolved the issues with gathering the archive data. But
I will.
I think for now I'm fine.
Okay, I might end up using your version 3 query since it works. I mean, the version 4 query works, but I'm starting to wonder if GraphQL is more volatile than the version 3 API. That I think if they, since it's more of a query, it's like kind of a query instead of an API call. I haven't had problems with it before, but
Yeah, I haven't really used the GraphQL API for anything real. I've played around with it a little bit, but the V3 one is so straightforward and easy to use that I've just kind of stuck with that since I
Yeah.
have code that works.
Yeah, and in the past we've only used, and I don't know what's the case here, but in the past we've only used GraphQL API when we have not been able to obtain the information in any other way. So there's some contributor info that we can only get from the GraphQL API, and so that's the one place that I think we use it in Augur, other than in the release worker. So like we do the same thing. We think version 3 is reasonably stable, and so we stick with it. And also, so yeah, so hopefully I finish that up, figure that out this week, because I think Ivana is actually gone all of next week.
She is. She's on PTO this week and next week.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try and take a stab at that. Andrew, do you have anything you want to update the group on?
I don't think there's anything large. I've just been working on all the issues, putting together graphs for just issues opened and the average time to first responses and the number of comments that are on repos or issues and things like that. Just not really too much.
Issue. I think that's, first of all, Andrew, for those of you who don't know, worked with Gabe and really did a lot of the work in the release of our CHAOSS Augur community reports repo. So what we're doing is Andrew's working in a private repository, so nobody accidentally clones the things that are junk. Like we try a bunch of experiments and see what works, and we leave a lot of old notebooks laying out there. So if like somebody on the internet tried to clone our sort of experimental repo, you would end up with like which of these work, I have no idea. And so we're using the Augur community reports repository to release reports that are actually ready to use, so there's no confusion in the user community about what reports work. So that's kind of how we're doing that. And that's kind of all the major Augur updates. It's kind of a summer week of just testing and Google Summer Code students finishing phase 2, moving on to phase 3. Troubleshooting a few things. I want to make a note. You can now go to Augur.WG.August.6.2020 and you can request an Augur instance. Just basically copy and paste if you've got a list of, or they could be either repositories or GitHub, GitLab organizations that you want us to collect data for. And like if I put in Sean Goggins and I don't know, this is one of my orgs, and I put in that and I said my email was Sean.Goggins@gmail.com. Got a little captcha in there so we can't get spammed. It's kind of funny. Every time I do the test, it shows me traffic lights. So I don't know if I'm getting the cheapo version. Enter a valid email address. Oh, I think the space. And then it gives you a long answer. Here, a bunch of info. And then I get an email that says that you requested the instance, and I get to work on your Augur instance for you. I direct you to our new Medium blog and also to the community reports page, which in addition to the instance that you get, can also be used to query things. So that's kind of a new thing that we're doing, and thought I'd mention it. If there are no further questions, I am not a person who feels the need to use all of the time. in a meeting, and I will bid you all farewell and stop the recording. Any other questions? Anything anyone wants to discuss?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay, Pratik, hi.
Yes, I asked you last week in the message, like for the server
Yes,
access and the
server.
copy of the database,
Yes, so you
write
did.
access.
Yes, you did. All right, I have that on my list. Summer. I've been a little distracted this past week negotiating with contractors, engineers, and insurance companies about my collapsed garage floor, so I apologize for that. So you need the DB copy plus server access. Got it. And I think you're the only person that actually requested the server access. Was there anyone else that needed that?
Yeah, I think I would be needing it for the pull request analysis because I
Okay.
also require some more data if possible.
Okay, it's possible. All right, I will get you all that access like right after this call. I'm going to use the 15 minutes that I get in order to get you that access. I apologize for the delay. Any other questions? Anything else anyone wants to address? Okay, then with that, I will say thank you very much for participating in the Augur call on August 6th, 2020. And stay healthy, be well, and we'll catch you on the internet.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.